Hello, hello. Welcome to Vinyl Junkies versus Vinyl Me Please Round 8. We're here with Mr. Matt Hessler to discuss all things vinyl and all things music. And say hi, Hessler. Say hi.
What up, what up? How's everybody doing?
It's been quite the hectic week, I can see, for you guys. We were trying to get the store. We were trying to coordinate these VMP episodes during the time before the store opened. We couldn't do it this week, but that's what the idea is, okay? So the VMP store, the Vinyl Me Please shop, opened to everybody last Wednesday at noon Eastern Standard Time. So we're going to pick from that, all the new releases. Matt,
we had a crazy store this month.
It's your best
like
one.
one of the,
No, go ahead.
This is one of the biggest we've done. I don't know, hard for me to say best or not. I'm stoked that you think it's the best, but yeah, this is like total title count. You know, as the club keeps growing, we're just trying to keep inventory to like where it's really diverse. This has been a great month for music, a lot of new releases, a lot of cool reissues. So I think this store was kick-ass.
I was looking through it, and I know that we base our picks on $100. I'm pretty sure because of the box sets that are in there, and believe me, I'm staring straight at that Ornette Coleman Atlantic box set. You know, it's beyond our limit, but I think I can spend $1,000 on the store this month. Very, very easy, and get a bunch of picks. It's absolutely insane. It's insane, and I'm looking forward to talking about it. There were some things that were off the radar for me because they cost too much, and it didn't kind of fit, you know, that $100 budget. The idea that the $100 budget is really, you know, look, you guys, you get paid, you're gonna buy records, you can't blow the whole fucking paycheck on the records, let's face it. But on the other hand, $100 gets you some records, maybe 3, maybe 4, maybe even 5. So we kind of got to this thing where we're going to talk about the stuff that we love most, and you know, you do what you want with your $100, but we got ideas.
Oh yeah, you
Matt,
couldn't get in there for a $375 Bruce Springsteen box set.
Oh no, there was another really expensive item.
Yeah, there's a couple in there.
I wound up picking only 3 because I necessarily picked some stuff that you know, costs more, but I had to do it. You know what I'm saying? So why don't we get to the picks? One thing that I noticed right away, Matt, is wow, man, you guys are going pretty heavy on the MF Doom, aren't you? Or Doom in general.
Yeah. So we decided. So we've loved Doom for a long time. I think it was back in 2015, we featured Mad Villain as our record of the month.
Yep.
When the club was still pretty young. We got a ton of great feedback around it as a record that everyone here loves. So when we introduced our rap and hip hop subscription, which now has been out in the wild for a couple months, so you can now sign up and get just rap and hip hop records, we knew we wanted to do a big Doom title, and so we've been working with Stone's Throw and Lex and trying to figure out what would be the right title to do. And so we're featuring Food as part of the rap and hip hop subscription, but we were like, let's blow this out. Let's do a whole month of Doom and put a bunch of records from the catalog, some of which we, you know, took and did special edition pressings of. Some of them are kind of standard. We've got a t-shirt in there. There's just a ton of killer Doom stuff. So if you're a fan, this is a hell of a month to like be part of Vinyl Me Please Rap and Hip Hop and load up on some of those Doom pressings.
It's funny because that's exactly, I mean, you're leading right into one of my picks. And one of my picks is a bit of a cheat because I kind of had to do it in 2 scenarios. Because you went into the Doom thing, I figure we can very easily get into it by saying, okay, well, one scenario that I had is just buy the entire Special Herbs. Okay, you're selling 5 of them. You're selling 5 of them in a package for $90. 5 records, $90. Boom, boom. I'm happy. All things Doom, you know. And it's like I collected. I got Ghidra. I got JJ Doom already. I already have Food, and I'm really curious to see what your copy is going to be like versus the copy I have. I have a pretty cheap. Like the copy I have is pretty flimsy. Are you guys doing anything with the packaging to Food?
Yeah, the whole
Awesome.
package is amazing. I mean, I'm really excited. So it's 2 LP.
Of
It
course.
is we did a cool like a white and a green. So you got
Very
two
good.
different disc colors, which is cool. But the real meat of it is it was it's a heavyweight gatefold tip-on jacket. So you
Beauty.
got like it feels really substantial. It's kind of traditional. I mean, it's 33 RPM. The vinyl's like heavier weight, but not. It's not 180. I think it's 150 or 160 gram. But the package feels really good in hand. I love all the artwork that comes with the Doom stuff. We have this cool Doom stencil, so you can get like the mask. And I've heard a few like DJ collector friends like talk
Dude,
about like spray painting their crates and whatnot with the Doom mask, just because
yeah.
it's so iconic.
I have a suggestion when it comes to that too. I really love your stencils. I
Mm-hmm.
love your stencils. I'm here, I'm
Nice.
building the entire record cave, and I got stencils and stuff, and my
Mm-hmm.
floors are cement, so it's like, look, I'm pretty lowbrow. I'm not gonna. There's no oak floors here in the record cave. I'm just not one of those guys. Cement is fine. But I like the idea of painting cement, and I
Yeah.
love the stencils. I love all of them, from Erica Badu to Snoop Dogg. They're
Yep.
fucking brilliant. I would love to just make almost like a tile, a VMP rap and hip hop kind of like tile, and just and spray paint every single stencil as far
Yes.
as we
Do
can
it.
go. And just the entry to the record cave just has every stencil. Yeah, but there's a caveat, you see. I won't
Oh.
do it because I'm a collector. And if I use those stencils, then they're all fucked up. Uh, I
So
know.
you're saying I gotta send you extra stencils?
I guess you can say it's an offhand way to say that they would definitely be good, put to good use. And I will say, to my defense, that I have changed my mind a lot about that. So I've pulled posters out of Swan's records, and I got them stapled up on my wall, and I've pulled like stencils out and used them because I believe that you're supposed to use the stuff and pin up the posters. So I could very well go against my initial idea of saving the stencils brand new, but
Mm-hmm.
everything inside me makes me want to use those sweet, sweet stencils that you have. Everything
Also,
inside me.
a stencil looks kind of cool, like after it's been sprayed out and you get all the overspray around the edge.
Dude,
Wait till it dries and put it right back in the package.
this
It
is
looks
true
even
too.
cooler because you used it.
This is absolutely true. And actually, you know what? If I start going there, you guys have started with the stencils for a while. How did we get into a
Mm-hmm.
conversation about stencils?
Oh, I know this is all part of like all of our rap and hip hop titles come with a stencil. So
Dude,
everything
but
we've done since like last October, there should be stencils.
am I wrong? Am I wrong in saying that your first stencil though was Lee Perry, Upsetters, the Big Ape,
Yeah, for Super 8.
Super
Yep.
Ape, right?
Yep.
That was the first one. Yeah. Holy fuck! It's gonna hurt to take that stencil out, but I may have to take those stencils out and just maybe do an entire VMP stencil walkway right into the record cave. That would look
Oh, and just like
fucking
bomb them
awesome.
all over each other so they're kind of stacked up. I think it would look super cool.
Yeah, dude, I think that has to happen. It does. I'm fucking up my record collection for you, Matt.
I'll see what I can do about getting you extra stencils. We are now like they get put in the package
Yeah.
before it gets wrapped, so we don't have a ton that are extra. But I'll do some digging as long as you promise to give me a picture of the man
Oh yeah.
cave.
Oh yeah, dude. The record cave is gonna be. The record cave is my fucking testament to music. It's my. I see this show. I see everything that we do, dude, as a contribution to the world, a contribution to art. You don't make music, I don't make music, but we appreciate it and we do our part in order to kind of get it out there. So, I mean, I wish I knew how to strum a guitar or tinkle a piano, tinkle the keys on a piano or whatever, man. It's just,
Me too.
on the other hand,
I had to.
sorry, go
My
ahead.
mom made me take piano lessons when I was a little kid, and I super appreciate that it was a priority for her. We just had this old crappy upright in our house. The two things she did that were kind of a mistake. Well, I guess it was only one thing. Our piano teacher was like 800 years old, and all she wanted to teach us was like
Brahms,
Chopin, and
Chopin,
like I
sure.
was just like, it wasn't fun ever. It always felt like work. But I realized pretty early on, like I could muscle through. I learned how to read a little bit of music, but I just didn't have that ear. I don't have a gift for it. But I think in a lot of ways it gave me like such a deep appreciation, even from being a young kid. My mother was the dean of students at the Eastman School of Music
Okay.
in Rochester, New York. So, like, from the time I was a toddler, I'd have to go to like student recitals and hear all these like incredible classically trained musicians give these, an oboe recital or whatever it was. But I appreciate it a ton, and I just know that I don't have it. So I feel lucky to work in music, be around music, help to promote music, because God knows I'm not making any music.
Yeah, I wish. Look, I know that even if I started now, right? There's always the thing that you're never too old. But
Sure.
dude, come on, man. I'm like two left feet. It's just I'm not
Yeah.
dexterous. You understand? Dexterity and grace is not really very very representative of my brand. So you're not gonna get me fucking playing like Rubinstein. It's just not gonna happen. You know.
Nope.
On the other hand, you know what? These records, every one of them, I've listened to everything, Matt. This is I'm proud of this. I spent my life putting it together. I'm proud of the records that I get from VMP, and I consider myself an archivist of VMP. And actually, as I was looking through it, you guys sent the last box. I now officially, VMP, the VJ Archives now officially have over 100 VMP
Whoa.
releases.
That's
We've
amazing.
crossed, yeah, man, we've crossed 100 titles. So there's a very healthy archive there. And I like that you're doing that. I really like that you're doing that with your rap and hip hop. And you're beginning to kind of take a long view and realize that it's not just the release as it comes out. You're putting together a catalog, like Encyclopedia Britannica. Yeah, you can buy Encyclopedia Britannica, or name me another encyclopedia. We're old. Let's talk about Encyclopedia.
Yeah.
Encyclopedia, whatever the fuck, yeah, right?
Yeah.
Two of them.
Let's
But
stick with Britannica.
right? But you're not going to put, when you put those on the shelf, you're going to put all the spines together because they look nice.
Yeah.
Right? Because they belong together. And you guys are beginning to do that. I noticed with your new spines. You're kind of
the OB strip.
Yes, the little OB strips are kind of fun. I didn't bring them out because I have them back there, but I've noticed that it kind of allows me to engage in the spine porn with Vinyl Me Please finally. Like, one of the things that was always something that I didn't like was, when you guys did the whole big cardboard thing, it was kind of like lifeless. It was just white and stuff. But I used to put it all, I used to anyway put them all together. So I had kind of like this big wall of white that was all VMP. Then from there, the subscription, you guys stopped doing the white thing, right?
Right. Yep.
So as that happened, it's like, well, fuck, I can't put the VMP records together. So slowly they started going all over the collection. So the Lee Perry is with the reggae, and the Father John Misty is where, with the rock and all the rest of this. It finally just found its place. What's happening now?
We might upset that whole thing. But let me finish your thought. I'll let you in on a little VMP gossip.
I love it. I'm hoping, because for me, this is where it is you're beginning to get me. And it's only 3-4 titles in, but I know it's going to go further, and I can't wait for it. As a collector, I noticed that a lot of the Obi strips look the same way. They look the same color. You catalog them. It's all clearly legible, and every spine is thick enough so that it's legible, not something that'll just crunch, right? So what happens is, now that I got 3 or 4 of those titles, I'm beginning to put them together, and you're giving me another reason to include your records and put them all together in the same way that, the proudest part of my collection, which is, I'm trying to point to the, I got the wrong fucking, anyway, my orange and black spines of Impulse is my pride and joy. My black lion spines right next to them are my pride and joy, and I've begun doing the same thing with Numero. If you see just over my head, you'll notice that there's a little Numero section, because they've been doing it long, and they've kind of started Here, can I'll show something. I know you can't see it, but maybe you'll be able to see it in the replay. I saved the numero poster, okay, because it represents everything that I consider vinyl. The numero poster is basically just a double poster, okay, that shows us all the titles stacked up together. And dude, this is the most beautiful thing in the world. The numbers are all there, the spines, and it gives you something to aspire to. So as I was putting my collection together, I noticed I had 11 numero titles. A lot of them came from you guys too. Right? And I started putting them together, and now all of a sudden, you know what happened, and it will go into my next pick. Okay? As I was looking at all those great records that you have in your shop, one record turned me on my ass immediately because I'm a fucking record collector and I'm stuck to that spine porn. So what it is that I just did is I put up the numero collection of the Exotica. What the heck is the name of that record? My notes aren't with me,
It's like the woman like laying on the drums.
Yeah, the woman laying on the congas, and she's got, you know, 2 shakers, and it's just a numero group collection, and I think it's what it was 43. It was an expensive collection, but $40 I think. And Matt, I don't even know how many records there are in it. I don't know if it's a double. I don't know if it's a all I know is I've come to understand the aesthetic of numero. I've come to respect the fact that they respect the source material so much that I know whatever I'm going to get is going to be good. I'm going to pay a premium, perhaps, because it's packaged in a premium way, but it doesn't matter because I know that numero has a certain standard. They stand for that, and I'm going to get that. So I'm buying this box set, and I was going to buy stuff like Thelonious Monk, or I was going to buy Ben Webster. I was going to buy a bunch of stuff that I already knew but didn't have. Ooh. Instead, I'm going for this box set filled with music of which I haven't heard a single note. None of it.
I don't know much about it, but one of the things, so Andrew Winnestorfer, who's our head of editorial, he was kind of riding for this record as a store pick, and the only thing I remember the only thing I remember him saying about it is he's like, you've never heard a record with so many bird calls on it. So I don't know. Apparently there's like a bunch of Congo drums, a bunch of jazz, and then bird noises. So get ready for that.
No, dude, the thing is I know exactly what it is. It's Exotica. I got tons of Exotica. I mean, I've been collecting Exotica for 30 years. So it's like I have the Les Baxters and the Esquivels and the Martin Denny's and so on, Ima Sumac and so on and so forth. I know what I'm getting. I know the music. I have an idea. And if it comes from that period, which is to say late 50s, early 60s, when that whole Tiki situation, like, especially, I think it was mostly in America, but there was a whole Tiki craze, right? Where, you know, it's kind of like you watch some movies where it's kind of like you got the hood ornament of, like, you know, the woman with the Tiki, with the straw skirt kind of, you know, there's that whole thing, and, you know, drinks, and there was an entire scene. As a matter of fact, to go a little step further, Calypso was also a thing, right? Harry Belafonte, for example, made a huge career exactly during that time, and was probably the biggest star, if you want, from that period, who made it, you know, made the largest impact. But can I tell you about Robert Mitchum? You know the actor?
I'd have to Google him. Robert Mitchum. It sounds familiar, but I can't picture the guy's face at all. But tell me about it. Robert
Mitchum was a very, very, very popular Hollywood idol during the 50s, 60s.
Oh, yeah. I just Googled. His face is super
recognizable. Yeah. It's like he was the heartthrob, right? And he was very much the ladies' man, stud type of thing. Anyway, at one point, what he did was he recorded a... what kind of music is that? Calypso. He recorded a Calypso record.
Okay.
Now, he's not a musician. He's not a Calypso musician at all either. So it's just one of these oddities. The record is called Calypso is Like So. I have it. Dude, it's the most fucking amazing Exotica because it's odd. It's kind of like William Shatner singing, but William Shatner's kind of putting it on. You know what I'm saying? Leonard Nimoy is kind of putting it on. So you get that whole joke. Even Pat Boone made a metal album at one point, and he's kind of putting it on. Nah, dude, not this fucking Robert Mitchum. Robert Mitchum, the way he came up with this is that he was filming out in the Caribbean. I forgot exactly where, but he was filming in the Caribbean, and he liked to party. He liked to hang out with people. So he was always getting drunk with the locals after shooting was done. And there's always, you know, it's like the Caribbean. Music's always being played around you. And he found himself just absorbing it, and he found himself wanting to participate in it as well. So after spending a lengthy amount of time shooting there, he decided, you know what, I'm going to make a record. And he made a record of Calypso standards that is probably still very legitimately one of my favorite Calypso records ever. And we're talking about, think about all the legends, like really up there.
Sure.
You know, and it's an oddity record. And if you can find it, it's called Calypso is Like So.
That's crazy. That sounds like worth exploring. My knowledge of Calypso is so shallow, but like, I actually really dig that Calypso Exotica. I feel like there's like a thing for record collectors that like you need to get past like a certain amount of records before you start diving into some of these genres. Like I feel like even though I've been at it for, I don't know, maybe 8 to 10 years, I still collect like things that are in the genres that I'm most familiar with. But then every time I get exposed to some of this stuff, some of the Cuban music we've been doing, and then some of this like Exotica and like, it just feeds like a crazy desire to build that stuff out.
It was beautiful yesterday. I mowed my lawn, fucking blasted Orquesta a Cocan. Yeah. So yeah, you guys are doing it right. You really are. And the thing, look, in terms of collection, my feeling is, I can only speak from my personal experiences. My collection started getting interesting at about the 500 record point. Because at the 500 record point, you're not somewhere usually, right? You're not just curiosity just takes over. So you start listening. So if you buy the first 100 and it's all metal, for example, or it's all rock, or it's all stuff that you know, eventually you're going to start, by force of listening to those records, you're going to start listening to the stuff that's a little bit left of center. Once you have 500, you have a sufficient enough library and vocabulary. You've listened to enough music to be able to kind of start separating all the little nuances in your collection that make you kind of say, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. And it's once you start going off into those little rabbit holes that you wind up collecting, you know, that you wind up deciding, you know what, if I had $100 in VMP, I'm going to spend $40 on an Exotica box set of which I haven't heard a note. Because, you know.
Yeah. No, I think that's very cool, and I don't think I'm totally there yet, but I feel so lucky, you know, privilege of getting to be part of what we're doing here at Vinyl Me Please. Is like our music team has those big collections and loves going into that left of center, and I find that I discover so much music just through working here. That Orchestra Acocan, and I mean, some of that stuff has been some of my favorite records this year, and you start to veer off of some of the mainstream stuff, which is, it's just great for exploration. So, well,
look, I mean, why don't you tell me what your next pick is? I mean, we're definitely nerding. I haven't even told
my first pick yet.
Yeah,
really,
you know,
you've been going on about Doom and now this Exotica,
brother.
I will double back on one thing you said, though, and this will be a little bit of gossip just for our viewers of this show.
Give it to me, buddy.
VJ fans.
Awesome.
I don't want to commit to a timeline, but I think, so we've had such good feedback on the Obi strips that we're now doing Obi strips for all of our records going forward. So the essentials, the rap and hip hop, the classics will all have an Obi strip. And I think we're going to go back and reprint Obi strips for every record we've done as a subscription record. So not some of the store exclusives.
You fucking rule.
Yep.
Can I tell you something? Yeah. No, go ahead. No, I'm going to let you finish your thought, man. It's just I get too excited. I'm sorry.
I think we're the same. I mean, the spine porn thing is like it's a real thing. Like
fucking right.
Once we started seeing it in our own shelves of like 5 or 6 rap and hip hop and how good they look together, you're like, Oh God, I gotta have all my records lined
Dude,
up.
but this is your catalog. If you guys are proud of where you started, and you started humbly, and you're getting somewhere, like now, as far as I'm concerned, to talk to the old guys, you guys are becoming the not Publishers Clearinghouse. What was that club? The Columbia House Club.
Columbia House, sure.
Or BMG Club. You know, you're becoming kind of that whole thing by taking the Amazon experience and adding a curation to it. The fact that you're taking those spines, I was just waiting for you to complete your sentence, dude, to tell you, you know what I think you should do? I think you should go back and make spines for every single one of your records. I was just about to say it.
Yep, it's going to be the full collection.
Awesome.
It's gonna look so glorious. When
Brother, I can tell you something. I can promise it. Okay? That, at some point over here, all the records that you see behind, there's going to be just one massive section of fucking VMP, because I want to see what it looks like. I can't wait. I can't wait to start digging everything up and putting it together and just making it look nice.
That's great.
It's like a fucking quilt, man. You understand? And there's some pieces that are bigger and more important, and they're more central to the quilt. And to me, my pride and joy will always be my impulse. I mean, that's my records, you know. Those
of course.
But the fact that I have a whole bunch of this and I've absorbed all of this music since working with you, and I have over 100 titles, and we've spoken over. You guys, man, thanks, man. Yeah. Thanks. It's wonderful. You know, I know that I'm speaking for every person who buys records, but you engrave yourself in the soundtracks of people's lives. It's important.
That's gets us up in the morning, man. It's important to us personally, so we know that it's something that other collectors feel and share. We get that feedback and support. It's great.
Give me a record.
Are you gonna let me pick my first record or what?
Yes.
So the first one's actually something modern, new release.
Okay.
It is the new record from a band called Ice Age called Beyondless. I've been into Ice Age for a while. I think they put out their first record in 2011. It was 2011 or 2012. They're on Matador, although I'm not sure the first record came out on Matador. And they're from Copenhagen, and that first record was like definitely in the vein of post-punk, which, you know, with some of these post-genres, I'm not even sure what that definition is, but their debut record was like pretty rowdy, you know, in your face, high energy, super guitar driven. And they've just continued to evolve. And I swear it's something that only like a European band could do. I feel like American artists like struggle with their genres a little bit more, but this new record is amazing. It still has some of that energy, but there's, I mean, saxophone, trombone, trumpet, piano, violin, like it's this huge, lush, like set of instruments, but they kind of like pummel these instruments. They are like using those instruments in a very hard way, which is actually really cool. And it's been really interesting to see the arc of their career. And for me, this record is probably in a top 10 of new releases for 2018 so far.
Yeah, well, I always look forward to the stuff that you talk about, because now this sounds up my alley. Like just listening to you talk and describe it, you know, the European thing and how you were talking about how, you know, there's a struggle with genres and all that. I immediately thought to two of my absolute favorite European bands that I haven't heard any Ice Age, but I'm curious. But it made me think of Dungeon from Sweden. That's really a hard, just a hard driving band. Like the drummer sounds like Pete, but not Pete Best, but what's his name? Keith Moon, man. The drummer drums like Keith Moon, man. And it made me think of Motorcycle, which has a rabid following in Europe. Rabid. And it seems like they're able to just very quickly just go through one genre to another and just visit a whole bunch of things and create this music and create this thing that is 100% theirs, so much so that people, you know, they have that whole trade thing happening, much like the Melvins have in North America. You know, difference is that when, you know, with Melvins, there's the collector thing and it's that sound, you know what to expect. With Motorcycle, you never know what to expect.
Right.
It's
I'll
Go
throw
ahead.
one other comparison out here that like
Go.
I get worried because I know the fans of this band are think of it as so precious, but I've heard a number of people compare Ice Age to the Swans.
Ooh, now that got
Yep.
interesting. Early Swans or
So
late Swans? Oh,
later Swans.
later
Yeah,
Swans, eh?
later Swans.
Wow.
So I don't know. It's an interesting proxy. I don't know if I totally back that, but I've heard it from a few folks, and I'm not super deep with the Swans, but I can see where the parallels are, and I think this record Beyond This is great. So
Well, you sold me. I'm curious. Let's just say I'm curious. You know what, dude? I've gone on for so long. I think I'd like to listen to your voice for a little longer. Why don't you give me another pick, man? I got all of them lined up here.
I'll do my second one was Tom Waits, and I had to kind of wrestle because we've got two great Tom Waits indie variant like repressings. Epitaph and Anti Records have been reissuing a bunch of this stuff. We did that like a VMP exclusive version of Closing Time, I think 2 months ago, and I've been a casual fan of Tom Waits, but when I got that record, I've been surprised how often I keep putting it on my turntable in the last 2 months.
Oh, yeah.
And how that music can work for a lot of different, I don't know, kind of moods and feelings. So I had to wrestle with the two different Tom Waits titles that are in the store. To make my $100 budget, I had to kind of decide a little bit on price. So I went with the Hearts of Saturday Night as opposed to Nighthawks at the Diner. Nighthawks is a little bit more expensive, but
well, it's a double, right?
And I like both of these records. I really like for the Heart of Saturday Night how he kind of does like the weird beat poetry thing. There's like 2 tracks on that where he's just kind of rhythmically talking. He's not even singing. And I think that's like a cool quintessential kind of Tom Waits sound. And so
during that period,
both of these records, but I'm actually really stoked to have Heart of Saturday Night.
I'm actually really, man, I'd love to have Tom Waits conversations, but in my mind, Tom Waits basically occupies 3 different periods. Like I listen to Tom Waits for 3 different periods. There's the early period, which is the folk songwriter period, where he was being compared a lot to Bruce Springsteen, right? So the songwriters so you see him kind of like, you know, singing a lot of, especially if you hear, you know, the early years, there's volume 1 and volume 2, you'll just see that it's him accompanied with an acoustic guitar or a piano. So there's that whole kind of singer-songwriter thing, of which Closing Time is. And Closing Time is definitely my favorite album from that period. Have you taken the time to listen to the song Martha and what it's about?
I've certainly listened to it. I'm not sure if I know the backstory, if I've really like parsed the lyrics. But
it's fucking made me cry so many times because it's about a long lost love. The entire song Martha is him singing a conversation that he has, this conversation, a phone call that he makes to an old flame that he hadn't seen in years. So the entire beginning of the conversation is kind of like, Martha, Martha, it's been so many years. And it's like, you know, you start the conversation, wow, it's been so many years, right? There was no Facebook. So you'd have to call someone out of the blue and look up their number. So he's singing about calling up this old flame. You don't know it's an old flame. It's just, hey, Martha, it's been so many years. What have you been up to? Oh, you're married. You have a kid. Oh, very nice. Yeah, I've been doing very well also. And that's the way the lyrics go. And as the song goes on, you realize that he's not just interested in catching up, but interested in letting her know that, you know, maybe 20 years or 25 years down the line, he still carries a flame for her. You know, so it's like if you listen to the last words, like, you know, Martha, Martha, I love you, can't you see now? Because that's happening during a conversation, right? So listen to the way the conversation starts, and it starts with kind of like, hey, it's been such a long time, to a confession of, I never stopped loving you, man. And the days that we were together were, you know, those were days of roses. Poetry and prose and Martha, all I had was you, and all you had was me. And if you listen to
You do a good Tom Waits. I like it.
no, I do a horrible Tom Waits, but I can definitely say that it spoke directly to that deep, deep heartache that you have when you met that person that you loved so much, and you know that it's you that fucked it up, or you know that it was the wrong time, it couldn't happen, but it's too bad because this person was perfect, you know, and you never lose that flame. You move on, but you don't lose that flame.
I feel like that's like one of those things that's universal or close to, where so many people have some version of that in their life.
Dude, that was only the first period of Tom Waits. You know what? It's going to go on too long. I'll get into the other two periods another time.
Yeah, let's go back to your picks.
Okay, sure.
For me, you got Ice Age, you got Tom Waits. For you, what's your second pick?
Okay, well, no. There's the two picks that I did was the Numero box set, the
Technicolor Paradise.
The Technicolor Paradise. And if I had to choose just one thing, I would take all of those Metal Fingers Special Herbs things. That I think that set is fantastic. But if I had to go to my next one, another must have for me was Black Panther, man. Because Black Panther.
Kendrick?
I think Kendrick is that big a deal. I think, I'm pretty sure that I have it here behind me in my stacks because, yeah, I do, you see? Because it's just always on hand. It's always on hand because when I listen to them, after maybe the second time, I realized that the man's kind of this generation's poet. He's this generation's spokesperson for his community, and I think that he handles his stage very well. And he's, to me, Damn was akin to like a hip-hop What's Going On.
Oh, interesting.
You know, I think that highly of the record, and I think that highly of what he does. So I haven't watched the movie. I haven't watched Black Panther, but I've heard it's such an amazing movie, and I should, and I will. But the fact that Kendrick is attached to all of that and is attached to this entire bigger scene that's bigger than just becoming a big star, that it's about community and support. So, you know, there's the Kamasi thing and there's the West Coast Get Down. To me, anything Kendrick related is a must buy. So immediately I had to pick it. So yeah, Black Panther.
Yeah, and you've got everybody on there, right? Anderson .Paak, Vince Staples, Schoolboy Q, SZA. Like, I mean, that's a great... I'm usually not one for soundtracks, but you get a ton of diversity and cool singles in this. So
I think that pretty much takes my picks. You got a couple of picks. Why don't you go?
So the next one is going to be a little bit of a needle drop record. Well, not really. It was a needle drop record. I'll explain. But
okay.
So again, this kind of loops into Andrew Winnistorfer, our head of content. He is also he's a big country music fan.
Yeah.
And that has been a genre, like when you grow up upstate New York, hardcore punk kid, you just instinctively are like, fuck country.
Country sucks.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, but that's like a bias that was created. Luckily, my father was like a huge Willie Nelson fan, and we had a old 70s Dodge van that we used to drive around like cross country listening to Willie Nelson 8-track. So there's a little bit in my cold dead heart for country. But Storfer tells me like, you got to listen to this new John Prine record. And I'm like, okay, never heard the name John Prine. It's in a genre I don't really care about. But we were doing an exclusive of it. So we've got, I think it's a limited to 500 stamped and numbered. The new record's called The Tree of Forgiveness.
Yep.
And so we get the test pressings here for all of our exclusives. Everything we do is a subscription record. We always get a test press. And he's like, and somebody from the office always has to QA the test press. So
okay.
Andrew's like, hey, you be the one to QA this test press. I think you're going to really like it. And that requires, you got to listen to it a couple times digitally. Then you got to listen to the test press, make sure everything sounds right. So I've now listened to the record a whole bunch of times. And it grew on me a ton. Like it is a lovely record by a 71-year-old, and it's got that kind of simple, straightforward life wisdom that I think comes through almost best in country music because the song structures are so simple. And he's this old guy and all he wants is a fucking cigarette, but he's had to fight cancer twice already in his life. And it's just that kind of stuff, those kind of like banal struggles that he can convey. And it's not just a story about like cigarettes or whatever. It's like just those bits of longing and how do we make the right decision. And
it's the same thing that makes you like Tom Waits' Closing Time, just in a different style.
No, absolutely.
A more countrified, folky style, that maybe musically sounds a bit more like John Fahey or that kind of thing, or Townes Van Zandt.
Yes.
But go ahead.
It reminded me of a turn of phrase I've heard more about, like literary, like writing.
Okay.
I was thinking about this when you were singing those lyrics from Martha. Is the phrase was like, great characters make the personal seem universal and the universal seem personal, and that's what I get from this John Prine record. And that's like, when you were singing Martha, that just kept ringing in my ears of like, that's just a thing that is like, it was clearly the Martha was his person and it was personal to him, but that's such a universal that we could all like kind of understand and get behind. I think that's a real talent to be able to like look through both of those lenses as a songwriter, and that stuff's the stuff that makes it compelling when you hear it.
I really hope that you send me one. Can I make it? Well, it's not really a confession of any type, but I've known about John Prine for ages. He's had a long career. He's come up and, I used to work in a telemarketing firm selling newspapers over the phone, and my boss was a sadistic man, somehow liked John Prine. I've known about his career and I haven't heard a single note. And I'm so curious. I've been curious to begin with. I've read the advance press on this record, and I've heard that it's a knockout record and one you should have. But I haven't heard a single note of John Prine, so I think I rather enjoy the idea of being in my 40s and listening to this, one of those artists that has the potential of being, this guy's been doing this longer than I've been alive. Where has it been all my life, And it's kind of like, it's almost like you just get this big cog in the wheel of the soundtrack of your life, and it's like, boom, 48 years old, you finally discovered this artist that winds up being central to the soundtrack of your life for the rest of your life,
Yeah, I could totally see that. And I do, I wouldn't want to like exclude younger people from wanting to buy this, but I do think this is a record that appeals, at least I'll just put it in my own personal context. In my 40s, this record seems a lot more compelling. I can't picture myself as a 25-year-old. Like, you got your whole life in front of you. The world is your oyster. You're indestructible. Like, you don't give a shit about the ruminations of somebody looking back on their lives. Like,
not necessarily.
But it just resonates differently a little bit older, and we can look back and maybe have some of those shared experiences and see the wisdom in those simple songs that maybe I wouldn't have gotten when I was younger.
I have two thoughts on this. The first thought is just basically in terms of people and how they consume music. It's a whole other game. I think that younger people now are more informed and are more, as much as they have a million choices, in the end, somebody who is looking for the kind of music that John Prine makes, and I'm going on assumptions, okay? Educated assumptions, but I'm waiting for the needle drop. But people that go there, again, these artists speak to human suffering. Okay, a lot of the time it's because, think about it, the internet wasn't there, so what records are marketed towards kids, right? You're being marketed to when there's not 1,000 channels. Now there's fucking billions of channels, and you can click where you want. So Google is your friend, and when you're a 20-year-old or an 18-year-old who's suffering, there is music that will speak to that suffering. Yes, teenage angst will always be the realm of, let's say, maybe metal and, you know, punk or like that young stuff. But there are some people, you know, that those simple words will affect them very much in the same way that a fucking role model teaches you how to be, you know, a good, responsible human being. You know, my records taught me. They did, man. My records, I cried to my records because I fucking didn't feel safe doing it around human beings because I don't trust human beings. But art, these people are expressing, and if they did it if they did it in front of me, maybe I wouldn't connect, or maybe it would be too sensitive for me. But as somebody who really was way too hard and way too angry, these records are where it is that I let that through. So I think that young people have much more choice, and they're probably, my guess, I mean, I might be wrong, you can feel free, you know, that's what the discussion is about, but they'd probably be more likely to buy a record like this than I would have been in my 20s.
That's probably true. It's probably a difference of the times a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm only thinking about my own 20s when my music was either loud and like, fuck you, or it was just kind of happy rock and roll.
Yeah, that would make sense. Well, loud and fuck you takes up a lot of your life, you know, so do it with great gusto. Give me another choice, brother.
Being 25. So my last choice loops all the way back to the Doom stuff. I own Born Like This. So when I was looking at our two exclusives, the Special Herbs, I kind of couldn't pick just one of the volumes. I couldn't afford to do the whole, you know, 5 record kind of bundle. So the JJ Doom Keys to the Cuffs was the obvious choice for me. It's 2 LP. I had to go back and listen to this. I'd listened to it ages ago, and I mean, I like the fact that it's got a little different sound. I mean, I always forget how exactly he pronounces his name. It's the guy that is JJ. What was his? It's got it's Gennaro.
I don't remember. Yeah,
Gennaro, Janil, or something.
He was living in Europe, I think, at the time. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I think when they recorded this, he was in New Orleans, and so.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay.
Like he gets half the MC credit. He produced, I think, some or all of it. I think it's cool. I love the cover art. I think the whole thing, it'll kind of round out. I'll now have our version of Food. I've got Mad Villain. I've got Born Like This on a standard, black 2 LP, and so I'm stoked to have Keys to the Cuffs.
And Keys to the Cuffs is going to be a VMP exclusive as well?
Correct. So that is, we had a hand in pressing that and deciding on the package and color details and all that, and it sounds great. And both that and our Born Like This are both versions that are VMP exclusive that are kind of paired with Food. So if you come in, join the Rap and Hip Hop subscription, you got a bunch of add-ons that you can really level up your Doom collection.
So I'll be the first person to officially ask the question as somebody who's curious as a record nerd. Will this JJ Doom include the Spine Obi?
It won't. So the Food will.
Okay.
But so we're only doing the spines for the subscription.
Collection, the subscriptions. Okay.
Yep. The store stuff. So the Food will, but both Born Like This and JJ Doom will not.
Okay, and the JJ Doom, will it have any special packaging? Because I have the original that was put out by Lex when it first came out, and I mean it's pretty sparse. It wasn't expensive, mind you, back then, but it's sparse. I was fair with it. Are you guys doing any update to that other than the color variation?
So I want to be sure. There was a whole bunch of blowback about we called the thing a gatefold that didn't end up being a gatefold. So I want to double check, but I think this does come gatefold. It's certainly, they're both 150 gram opaque blue, 2 LP. Let's see.
Well, what I'll do then is while you talk, I'll keep the MF Doom conversation going because my last pick was the new MF Doom record, and I don't know the name of it, but it's pretty simple. It's new MF Doom, and I need to have it. There's no
Nice.
other damn reason than that, because I kind of got into that whole area of hip hop only very recently, like in the last 5 years. I had stuff like King Ghidra, but I didn't know the connection to MF Doom because when I was a financial advisor, I used to work with Ninja Tune, and Ninja Tune, one of the sub-labels, put out the King Ghidra record, which is one of my favorite hip-hop records, really it is. But I didn't know anything about that whole thing, and just those iconic covers kept coming up, and eventually I got into the entire world of Doom and all of his various alter egos, Mad Villain and his collaborations, and now I feel that any opportunity to add to it. He hasn't made an album as MF Doom for a while, if I'm wrong too, so I'm very curious to see what he has to say.
Yeah, I think you're not going to be disappointed. I think both of those are wide spine. The Born Like This and JJ Doom are wide spine, not gatefold.
Okay.
They're both on 150 gram color.
Okay.
And so I think they'll be nice packages, but not over the moon. And they're priced like that. I mean, they're 2 LP for $25.
Well, yeah. Look, the thing is that again, nice packaging is nice packaging, but you're paying for it. Okay.
Yeah, of course.
There's one thing I've almost been thinking about for a little while, putting kind of like a poll. It's like, how much, what's the sweet spot for a collector that it's like, you know what, I would pay this much extra to have premium packaging over a more Spartan package, but I got the music, right?
Yeah.
Like, what's to me, I think like $10, man. I think I'd pay $10 extra for all of that fancy stuff.
I think it depends how much you love the record, right? Like for certain records,
yes,
I would hands down pay $10-12 more to have the nicest version possible. Other stuff where I'm dipping my toes in, like I don't know that I would have with my Tom Waits pick if it was a $40 super deluxe. I don't know if it would have been worth it to me.
Gotcha.
Like I'm still kind of early in my Tom Waits journey, and it sucks because like 5 years from now I might be like, man, I really need like super deluxe box set stuff. But right now, kind of meh.
Well, look, for me, the one thing that shouldn't be fucked with is the record itself. Okay, I'm okay with not 180. I'm okay with a thinner platter, but it's got to sound right. It doesn't have to be warped. It doesn't have to be off center. Once you got that, you build everything else around it. But the vinyl experience counts for something, and the way a record feels in your hands makes a difference. Okay, and that I'm not talking about super deluxe to buy super deluxe for the sake of it. It's a question of, if I'm going to take the jacket and open it up and read the liner notes, I want the experience to be great. I want to love the experience of listening to my records as opposed to the experience of listening to music. There's you're selling two different things, right? So the packaging does make a difference. The problem is that a lot of times people, they go over the top, and that's basically where the consumer gets fucked, because a lot of people say, oh, you know what, let's make a premium and let's charge a fortune for it, and I don't think that that's cool either. So there's kind of like a limit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree. I think that threshold for me is somewhere between $35 and $45, depending on how many discs of actual music I'm getting. It's just, it's hard to say. Like, and anything over about the $45 mark has to either be a shitload of music in the set, or it needs to be something that's just really precious to me.
I like, for me, the $30 record is this. The $25 to $30 record is this. A nice thick Stoughton sleeve, a gatefold. A gatefold. I want a gatefold. I don't want a gatefold with, I want liner notes. I want proper liner notes. I don't want it on some flimsy fucking sheet, because I'm going to take those liner notes and it's going to be in my hand. So if you're giving it to me on a loose leaf, it's not fun. Okay? I want them to be legible. And I want an entire experience that immerses me into me spinning my record. And if you're going to fuck around with a color, then make it a color that fits that entire aesthetic. If you give me that with, you don't even have to be a double record. It doesn't have to be a double record at all. Just a single record, right? But a nice slab with a nice jacket, gatefold, nice liner notes. Liner notes are an absolute necessity for me. Like a record without liner notes are a bummer for me. That I would pay, that $30 for the record without any problem. One company that I could use as an example that does deluxe records, they make really great sounding records, but they completely flub it when it comes to liner notes, is Music on Vinyl out of Europe. Music on Vinyl pressings sound great. They do. They're awesome.
Yeah.
There's no fucking liner notes to speak of. It's just a lot of them.
How much do you care about like the remaster stuff? Like, do you care if it's cut at half speed and 45 RPM? Do you think, has that made a difference to you in terms of audio quality?
In terms of audio quality, I would say yes. Where it is that I have a problem with a lot of the 45 RPM cut stuff is a personal thing, okay? Because let's use the example of Tom Waits' Closing Time. Was that a double or not?
Yes.
Okay, that was a double.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a perfect example, right?
You got to stretch it out, yeah.
Right? Now, the original, I don't remember how long it is, despite the fact that I've heard it a million times. The original was on one record. That's the copy I have. It's just one. I understand the value of making it sound better, 45, all the rest of this, but there's one thing that happens that completely destroys the experience for me. And it's not an insignificant one, and it's one that isn't necessarily a proper trade-off for me. The minute it is that you take a record that I'm used to listening to, a side 1 and a side 2, and you stretch it out over 4 sides, you completely fucked the original conception of the record. And to assume that the artist would, the artist, there's a side 1 and a side 2. It's like a book, man. If you got a double album, it's just everything's placed in the same place. The first song sounded a certain way. The last song was the epic song. The epic songs start on the third side for the most part. The first 2 sides are more of the, there's this entire thing, okay? And any artist that put their records together before the age of the 45 RPM or all of this collector stuff that's come out, that was part of it. Every chapter had a place. Side 1 of Dark Side of the Moon sounds a certain way. And it ends with Great Gig in the Sky. It doesn't end with anything else. That's what side 1 ends with. Side 2 is another thing. If you take Dark Side of the Moon and you make it sound better, and you put it on 45 RPM braced over 2, you're fucking up my entire experience of Dark Side of the Moon. And I don't want it, no matter how good it sounds.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Right?
Yeah.
That said,
I agree.
That said, I love when I get the 2-time 45, but when it comes to records that I know very intimately and records that I've had, side 1 and side 2 is what the artist intended. Like now, with new records that come out, there's none of that, right? Because the vinyl format is almost like, oh, well, you know what? There's all of these people that buy vinyl, so let's just put it out on vinyl. Some artists will go through the proper protocols of making sure that the record sounds, okay, this sounds side 1, side 2. There's companies like you guys that make sure that you elevate the level. There's companies like Run Out Groove or Numero that you pick up a record and it's going to sound amazing. It's put together properly, but yeah.
Yeah.
I'm done.
I think it makes a big difference. I mean, it sounds beautiful, but I agree. I mean, there's a pain in the ass of just having to get up and flip what feels like every 15 minutes as opposed to letting it stretch. And I think some records it really fucks with the experience. Other records, I don't know. I really like that recent pressing of Snoop that we did for the hip hop subscription last month. I bumped that loud this week, and it sounds really good as you crank it.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does, and that stencil looks fantastic.
Yeah.
Dude, man, we nerded out for an hour. It was fun. I feel sometimes guilty about the fact that we go off on a bunch of tangents. I hope you enjoy them as much as I do, because I like the tangents.
I love it. I got a new Calypso record that I got to hunt for.
Robert Mitchum, you want it.
Learned all kinds of shit. I'm going to get you turned on to some John Prine, and I think it's something you're going to really connect with. So we shared some music. That's the whole point, right?
And your store's been open since last Wednesday. If you guys want to visit app.vinylmeplease.com, that's where all of these records will be available. If you visit our site, vinyljunkies.co, you'll see a Vinyl Me Please post, the live videos there, as well as all the clips. So you can watch the video and then listen to music. We got music clips there for you also. Try to give you an interactive experience, and those records are all there. Save your pennies, man. It's chock full this month.
There's just so, I mean, I could have gone on and on. I'm glad we're not we could spend another hour with the stuff we didn't pick. We could just talk about the Ornette Coleman. We could talk about
Thelonious Monk.
I think it's sold out, but there's this like really cool Kamiko Kasaz, I forget how you say her name. It's her and Herbie Hancock, the butterfly thing. Kamiko Kasazi and Herbie Hancock. That was like rad, and we couldn't. I don't know that we're gonna be able to get any more of it. I missed out on it, but I've been listening to that a little bit digitally. It's really cool record. There's some Bjork in there. There's Aretha Franklin. There's Ben Webster. It's like
Nick Cave. You got like 4 Nick Cave records. Yes. Ornette Coleman box set. Yeah, it hurts. It hurts. It's
I know. I was like, oh man, there's Pedro the Lion in here.
It's your best one.
All over the place. Yeah.
Well, dude, that's another show, man. We went even over an hour. Thanks for doing it. I look forward to the next one.
Yeah, that was great. I had a ton of fun. I hope we get feedback. I mean, people should leave comments if there's stuff they want to see in our store or more of certain genres or whatever. We're out here trying to do this for the community and put up the most interesting curation we can. We don't want to like have it be an Amazon experience where it's just thousands and thousands of records. We try to keep it, somewhat small and really focus on that curation. But I'd love to hear
metal.
Yeah. I got that Nails and that Dope Smoker, the original Sleep Dope Smoker in there this month, but that metal section needs to keep growing.
I know somebody who could curate the fuck out of that,
Oh, I bet you
do. All right, Matt. Real nice, man. Thanks for doing this. It's been fun. Peace,
of course.
Folks.
Thanks, guys. Take care.